The world is a wondrous and confusing place. The advancement of science and history and expansion of our knowledge of the Earth gives us a more comprehensive view of our world than ever before. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at mysterious discoveries. Drone photographer spots and saves man being attacked by shark. Just like the secondary character in a cheesy film, sometimes someone sat on the sidelines can launch into action, and one amateur drone pilot did just this as he managed to capture a shark on camera, fulfilling its villainous act for the day, as it appeared to be moving towards a spearfisherman. Matt Woods, amateur drone pilot and photographer, was out on his balcony in Bondi Beach, Australia, in July 2021 flying his Mavic 2 Zoom, when a relaxed afternoon capturing an ocean view took a surprisingly eventful turn. He spotted a spearfisherman wrestling with what seemed to be an aggressive mako shark. When he spoke in an interview about the event, Woods described the horror and panic as he watched the shark take a lunge towards the man, who was swimming and using only a spear weapon to put distance between himself and the creature. Woods described the shark as circling the man, continuing to say, "The diver was fending the shark off and poking it with his spear. The shark then went after his float that is attached to the diver. He was charging it and trying to bite it, thrashing it about." Upon seeing the battle taking place, Woods and his girlfriend got in touch with the local lifeguards, all while keeping an eye on the situation via his drone. By being able to keep tabs on the confrontation from afar, Woods was able to keep an idea of the location, guiding lifeguards to the man's rescue. The aggressive nature of the shark was cause for even greater concern than merely the frightening presence of the creature. Looking back, the only reported instances of attacks on humans by mako sharks is only a handful, with 9 being shown on record as having taken place since 1580, with the solitary case having been fatal. This proves just how rare this scenario, caught on the drone's camera, truly is. For the most part, mako sharks do not tend to attack and do not consider humans to be prey. These rare instances make a lasting impact upon our impression of the species. The size, speed, and the ease with which they could cause us such harm is enough for many to be fearful, despite the scarce nature of incidents like this. Some have mentioned that spearfishermen are often the victims of shark attacks, with it being suggested that the mako sharks are attracted to the bait. Despite this suggestion, there's insufficient evidence to know if this was the case at this time. While sharks are not overly violent towards humans, the rare occasions upon which they are truly terrifying. Young great white sharks are expanding their range. The climate crisis has been affecting our world in a multitude of ways. From rising sea levels to hotter days, there are countless ways that this crisis is steadily but increasingly destroying our planet. One more unexpected result of this gradual heating is how it has impacted ocean life. The great white shark is a species that has survived on Earth for many, many years, turning off the evolutionary path of the mako shark ancestor approximately 60 million years ago. These creatures have survived through dinosaurs, ice ages, and have been swimming in the oceans long before the world as we know it today even began to come into existence. Despite their steady and hardy evolutionary advantages, it seems as though the impressive great white sharks will have to go through some more changes as they adjust to the rising temperatures of the oceans. A new 2022 study has begun to look at unexpected sightings of young great white sharks turning up at the edges of Monterey Bay, south of San Francisco. These sightings suggest that the sharks have been pushing their inhabited regions of the ocean northward. Since 2014, the young sharks seem to have stretched their living quarters up north by around 600 kilometers. This shift seems to reflect the increased difficulty of finding waters that are within a suitable and preferred temperature range, according to researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. This thermal shift stands to pose a threat to the great white population. The chief scientist at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, Dr. Carl Van Houten, said nature has many ways to tell us the status quo is being disrupted, but it's up to us to listen. Seeing sharks in areas they have, in the past, not frequented is just one piece of evidence telling us that the effects of climate change upon the ocean need to be drastically addressed. Of course, the natural world is composed of several delicate ecosystems, and so the movement of these sharks is not an isolated phenomenon, but rather one event initiating a chain reaction. The northern movement of the great white sharks has impacted the sea otters living at the top of the bay too, prompting a possible relocation of these animals in the not-too-distant future. These aquarium scientists began using electronic tags to study the young or juvenile great white sharks 2 decades ago in Southern California. These tags are what have allowed us to observe the correlation between the large Pacific heatwave back in 2014 to 2016, which severely impacted the south of California, and the subsequent movement of these sharks moving further north after sightings near Aptos, California. Typically, these waters remain in the average of 13 degrees Celsius, but as we have seen an increase in extreme temperatures, sometimes these waters can reach up to 21 degrees Celsius in the summer months. This hot water is not in keeping with the thermal preferences of the great white shark. Data collected over a 38-year period revealed that the great white sharks would tend to move into the cooler ocean areas, so it's no surprise that the heat has encouraged them to be on the move. Dr. Chris Lowe, a co-author of the study and the director of the Shark Lab at California State University in Long Beach, explained that while upsetting, this shift towards the north does align with the expectations biologists held as ocean temperatures continue to soar. He stated, "Frankly, I'll be surprised if we don't see this northerly shift across more species." The research conducted on this shark movement can be found detailed in the scientific reports. Hopefully we can turn things around as a planet and lessen our detrimental impact upon the oceans and slow down the rate of these animals moving. Harvard scientists claim to have found the physical source of consciousness. Human consciousness has been one of life's greatest enduring mysteries, puzzling theorists, scientists, and philosophers alike for thousands of years. But now, scientists have published a study that suggests that we might be one step closer to solving this mystery once and for all. The past few decades have brought multiple leaps and bounds in the field of neuroscience, as technology has allowed researchers to dive deeper into the human brain than ever before. This has allowed us to be able to track brain activity throughout multiple stages of consciousness and alertness, as scientists attempted to piece together how all of these electrical signals come together to create a brain that is unique from most other organisms in its awareness of its own existence. This study highlights research that pinpoints a network of 3 specific brain regions that appear to be related to consciousness in some way. For many years, consciousness has been considered to consist of 2 parts, an arousal portion and an awareness portion. And while the arousal portion has been linked to the brain stem, the awareness portion of consciousness has been much harder to pin down, although many researchers had suspicions that it lay somewhere on the outer layer of the brain. The Harvard study not only pinpointed the exact brainstem region that generates arousal, but it also found 2 regions of the cortex that seem to work in conjunction to form awareness and thus consciousness. Lead researcher Michael Fox from the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center at Harvard Medical School spoke on the impressive significance of these findings by saying that for the first time we have found a connection between the brainstem region involved in arousal and regions involved in awareness, 2 prerequisites for consciousness. A lot of pieces of evidence all came together to point to this network playing a role in human consciousness. To arrive at this discovery, the team deeply analysed the brain activity of patients who were unconscious or in a comatose state due to brain lesions and compared them to the brain activity of patients who had also experienced brain lesions but had maintained consciousness in order to try to pinpoint the differences between the 2 groups. Once the regions in question were identified, the researchers verified their conclusions with fMRI scans of 45 patients in vegetative states to ensure that they all experienced disruptions in the network between these 3 regions. Their findings were further verified by these scans, and it seems that science might have, at last, taken us one step closer to discovering the underlying factors of humanity. But why does this research matter? For starters, it helps to answer the enduring and pervasive question, what does it mean to be human? But in a more practical and worldly sense, understanding the physical source of consciousness not only helps scientists and doctors to develop a more holistic understanding of the brain regions and the mysterious bases of neurology, but it could potentially also help in the treatment for patients in a vegetative state who are alive but lack consciousness. Researchers hope that brain stimulation of the consciousness centers of the brain could lead to the development of a treatment for these individuals. Understanding the basis of consciousness can lead to innovations of all fields of science, as consciousness is the foundation of all aspects of humanity. For now, however, independent research is needed to confirm these exciting results and allow steps to be taken in developing treatments for vegetative patients and individuals with disorders of the consciousness. Scientists discover ocean dead zone larger than Connecticut. In the Gulf of Mexico, scientists have discovered a dead zone, also referred to as hypoxia. It is an area where the water has such limited oxygen that marine life cannot survive there. This particular hypoxia zone covers a staggering 6,334 square miles, making it larger than the state of Connecticut, and some scientists have suggested that the climate crisis may be behind this abnormally large hypoxia zone. Hypoxia are caused when the nutrients from the land run into the watershed and then, over time, into the ocean. This is usually a result of too much fertilizer being applied on crops and similar produce. The nitrogen, along with other compounds, encourage algae to grow. When the excess algae then deteriorate, the decay uses up a great deal of oxygen before sinking into the water. Nancy Rabelais, a researcher from the Louisiana State University, who is part of the team tracking the hypoxic zone, explained that the low oxygen levels are alarmingly close to the shore, with some areas lacking oxygen almost entirely. From our understanding of how these hypoxic zones can be caused, it is clear that there is a link between agricultural and farming practices, though experts are suggesting that we should not be too quick to consider that climate change is a key underlying factor. The EPA Assistant Administrator for Water, Radhika Fox, explained that the impact of climate change on communities in various ways cannot be ignored during this. She stated, climate is directly linked to water, including the flow of nutrient pollution into the Gulf of Mexico. She continued to say, as we work to address the Gulf of Mexico hypoxic zone, we must consider climate change and we must strengthen our collaboration and partnerships to make needed progress. The US Department of Agriculture has aimed to tackle this issue too, spending more than $50 million to improve the Mississippi River watershed in order to prevent further damage to the Gulf of Mexico. The climate crisis is impacting so many areas of our lives, and it is time to take action and accountability before it is too late. Chernobyl will be uninhabitable for at least 3,000 years. More than 3 decades after the world's worst nuclear disaster, the city of Pripyat in Ukraine is still thousands of years away from possible resettlement. It was reported by Greenpeace in their 2016 study of the accident that the Chernobyl disaster caused irreversible damage to the environment that is expected to last for thousands of years. Even though it has been more than 3 decades since the accident, the immediate areas surrounding Chernobyl will have to remain empty for at least 3,000 years as a result of dangerously high contamination levels. Some oppose this and claim that it is safe, but the history of nuclear energy speaks for itself, with numerous disasters and near disasters. The 1986 disaster at Chernobyl is one of the most frightening examples of the potential catastrophic consequences of a nuclear accident. An estimated 220,000 people were moved from their homes, and the radioactive fallout resulted in 4,440 square kilometers of agricultural land, as well as 6,820 square kilometers of forests in Belarus and Ukraine being unusable. Sergei Parashin, an engineer at the plant who worked there from 1977 to the day of the accident, told newspapers that they were extremely arrogant and thought that there was nothing they could not do. He admits that was the day they realized they were wrong. Nuclear experts who are currently working in the efforts to clean up the site say that the estimated return date of 3,000 years is optimistic. Still, Ihor Gromotkin, who was the director of the Chernobyl power plant, says that it will be at least 20,000 years before the reactor site would become inhabitable again. Regardless of the 3,000 or 20,000 year warning, there are some locals who have decided to repopulate the area their relatives once called home. Alexandra Lozbin, who is one of the estimated 160 people to return to the zone, says her husband had wanted to come back to his homeland all his life. He went back when it was all closed and prohibited, but he crossed through the barbed wire anyway. She says she and her husband returned to their home, which is situated 7 kilometers away from Chernobyl, in 2010. Furthermore, she says they hope that people will go back there and live, and their children and grandchildren will see what life was like there. But what do you make of these recent discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.